Most career advice tells you to find your path and stay on it. Nobody tells you that the people who figured out the fastest are the ones who keep raising their hands and asking for more, even when no one's asking them to. My guest today has done that for 20 years across 2 industries and 2 continents. Mariza has spent 20 years inside senior digital leadership across New York, London, and now Greece. Mariza, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast. Really excited to be here. Like you said, I started my career in New York. I left Greece right after graduation, and I always dreamt of living in the Big Apple. So I went to New York and started working in the financial services industry while doing my master's at Baruch College. And after graduation, I joined HSBC Private Bank, and I stayed with the bank for about 10 years. And I did multiple roles within the bank with some secondments to the UK. And I had 10 incredible years where it gave me the opportunity to actually shift from the finance side onto technology, which I am today. And that new skill set also allowed me to change industries as well, where in 2020, I was offered a role at BP in the energy sector, where they were starting their digital transformation and needed someone who had done this in large scale to come help them with that. So in parallel with that work, I got really inspired by the situation back home where we had a lot of refugees and underprivileged people. And I would say COVID almost created an opportunity for me to offer an upskilling program to them. So I started my NGO. We were training people on data analytics with a hope to help them enter a completely new sector. And we worked mainly with refugees. So that was a really rewarding experience. We can talk about it later on. And yeah, now I moved back home. I'm in Greece, venturing on my own. I've been through quite a lot of different environments, countries, industries. So I have learned a lot.
That's amazing. I think you've now have been living in like the most prized places to live. So you live in the Mediterranean, and then you had lived in the energy of New York. So both definitely dreams in with 2 different lives, right?
Yes, absolutely. Very different lives and both very exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that I love that you started in finance because I feel like New York has this energy of you're automatically attracted to the rush, the pull of finance. And like, tell me how that transition went into everything else.
So I think, not to reveal my age, but I think it was a little bit generational where everybody was studying finance at the time. But it was really booming. New York being the financial center of the world at the time, it was an environment that was super competitive, super interesting. It had a lot of traction for young people in all levels, from, graduates to senior management. And you can imagine that as your first job, you get trained in a system that demands so much of you, and that the competition is so high that you really have no option to just sit back and relax. So you kind of build a mentality of go, 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 and always be at your best, which I think it really helped me in my future roles. But it was not easy, I have to say.
Yes, definitely. I can resonate with that. And also the attraction of that. I don't think we're that far off from each other. We're around the same age. And there is such a energy around working in finance in New York, the happy hours after work, the social scene attached to it. So I completely resonate with that initial draw as well. When I went to Baruch, I started in finance and I ended up failing my first finance class. I've never failed a class before until I did that. And I was like, you know what? You can't make something fit when it's not for you.
Did we have the same professor? It kind of sounds like a tough professor. I remember having a really tough professor in corporate finance in particular. But yeah, for me, it was a real challenge because I did an executive master's at Baruch. I don't know if you remember those, while working. So it wasn't a situation where I was a student and I was just relaxing and I had the student hours and so on. I had 8, 9, 10, depending on the day, hours of work. And then in the evenings, I had school. And I remember some Saturdays I had school again. So it was 10 super intense months. Of course, there were times where I thought, okay, this is crazy what I'm doing. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think I'm going to succeed. But then in the end, of course, you finish and you're so happy and so proud of yourself. It was an incredible experience. And Baruch, as you know, great college as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's so great. I'm so happy I did it too. One thing that I really like about your background and your career that you built is you've stayed with some big companies for a long period of time, but you had a ton of upward progression. Walk me through, like, what was your growth within these companies? Like, how did you navigate that? Can you share any more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key reasons why I kept moving up, let's say, is because I never stayed. I'm not the person that's going to say, okay, I am doing this one thing and I'm going to do it perfect for the rest of my life. That's definitely not me. For two reasons. One, I get really bored very easily. And two, I'm so curious about the thing that's happening next to me that's so big that everybody's focusing on that I have to be part of it. So I think because of that, natural curiosity that I have, I was always the one that I would stick my hand up and say, you're looking for people? Okay, this is what I have. This is what I can offer. How can I be of help? And I think this started with my first jump from the advisory side over to program management, when I would say this time around was more of a push when my visa expired, my H-1B expired. And all of a sudden I heard from the paralegal that I just have to leave the country in a month. That was it. And at the time, the bank was running a massive compliance program because of, some regulatory stuff that had to get done. And they were looking for people that had front office experience. So for me, it was not an option. I had to open my mind. I had to be curious for something completely different from what I've known so far. And I think that's when it all started, because it gave me the opportunity to try something completely new, move countries, create everything from scratch. And then that's when I think it kind of took off after that, because that thing was then part of my DNA, the trying and learning and growing from that.
Yeah, I think that curiosity is the word that you mentioned, and that's really the accelerator to all growth, right? If you're curious about what's next, the future. And then the opposite side of that, because I think I'm not guilty in a bad way, but I think I share in that quality that you have of always being curious. The other side of that I suffer from is just being all over the place too. Like never settled in a good way of like, okay, we just moved into a new house. So what's the next house going to be like?
No, definitely. I mean, you always have that. But for me, I think there's always a 2 solid years of focusing, learning, delivering, and then branching out. Because I think before that, you just don't have time to actually understand what's happening and be of value. But the most important thing is not being complacent. I think that's what that you either have it or you don't have it. So it's good to wanting to test yourself and try more.
Mm-hmm. So I want to hear more about this visa story. How did those wild, I imagine, a couple of months happen of being told you have to leave and then figuring
One
it out?
month, 30 days.
Oh, geez.
I think it was a mistake at different levels. As an immigrant in the US, you can stay in the country as long as you are under an employer's visa. And every visa has a finite life. And there's nothing in the world that can change that life of the visa. So the norm is that when you're on an H-1B, without getting too technical, it lasts for 6 years. Before the expiration, you have to apply for the green card. So the plan was that my application will go in ahead of time so that I don't have to have that gap. And it didn't happen. And I was just informed one day that, hey, listen, your visa is expired. There's nobody that can keep you in the country. You just have to go. And what we could do is we can send you to an affiliate abroad. And after 16 months, you can come back with a transfer visa, and then your green card process can kick off again. It's when I learned a lot about visas and immigration without wanting to be an expert on immigration, but I had to understand my situation and my options.
Well, but you had a beautiful time to start over and have an unexpected pivot. So how was the transition to London then? Because that's where you went after, correct?
Yeah, oh my God. I had a very scary time making the change. Everything from sad, confused, disappointed, not wanting to go. Because if you think about it, I was there for almost 7 years. No, more than 7 years. And I had built a life. I had my career, my friends, my partner at the time. So that was home for me. And all of a sudden, somebody comes and tells you, listen, you leave everything behind. You just go to something that you never experienced before. You're going to do a different job. You'll find different people. You leave your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever. You leave your friends, and that's it. You start fresh. So you get scared, right? There's some resentment into it. But it was a great experience in the end because, once you accept that, okay, I have no option. I have to do it. That's when you actually start becoming curious and what can I make of it? And then I think once you open up, great things come. So I found amazing colleagues. I made fantastic friendships out of nowhere. It just happened to be a group of very like-minded friends. We were traveling across Europe. I could be home more often because I was closer. I was having a blast to the point where my boyfriend thought, okay, she's never coming back to New York. I did go back eventually, but it was scary. It wasn't something I jumped into with joy, but it turned out to be an amazing experience and it opened up many, many doors for me for the future. It was great.
So, what advice would you give other immigrants that are looking to transition to a new country? For me, I did it 2 years ago. And it's still scary for me. I'm still trying to figure it out. But you seem to have really thrived in that. So, those that are looking to transition, like, what would you say to them?
If it's a forced transition, is a different story, right? But if it's a willing transition and you feel this urge to move to a new place, there's always a reason behind it. What I would say is try to understand as much as possible the culture of the place you're landing in because it's very different. I remember me going with my New York attitude. It was just not okay for the British. It was coming across rude and, she knows it all and so on, which it's not what we're trained to be, right? We're trained to be confident and we're trained to be out there and so on, which is not something they like in the UK. So go in, try to understand the culture and take risks. I mean, take some calculated risks to the extent that you can, right? I mean, of course, you need some stability. So for me, anything around visa is super important. Make sure that everything is clear to you ahead of time and you don't go with a lot of ifs and question marks and whens, because that's when things get shady. And then if you love what you do and the company you work for, you're going to get a lot more opportunities. And just try to connect, try to create a network of people that can support you within your working environment, but also outside of your working environment, because you're building a new life. So you have to have new friends. You'll make new colleagues, but pick the ones that are supportive, that believe in you. So it's like building a life from scratch. So you really need to be open, try new things. Not everybody's going to be your best friend, right? Obviously, not everybody's going to look after you at work or help you grow or give you the next promotion. But you just need to find your people and basically build your new life.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I find amazing about that is I think that being able to go through a transition and thrive during change transition is a skill. And then you've also have done it so much in your career as well, because, if you go to a new team, a new role, whatever it is, that's your new family. Like that's your new culture. It could be the same company, but it's a completely different world. So tell me a little more on like those transitions that you made when you've been navigating throughout your companies.
So I can tell you with certainty that not every transition was a fun transition, because when you're within the same company and you move from one role to the other, the dynamics may change very, very drastically. And it's not something you can always control, manage, understand. So I'll give you two examples that actually happened to me. There was one time where I got promoted to my big role and I was super happy and promotion came and more money and la 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 la. But what happened was I went from a peer to some people to a manager. And that changed the whole dynamic, because all of a sudden, personal jokes are not happening. People don't trust you as much because they're afraid that they may tell you something that could be used against them for whatever reason. You, on the other hand, when you're at management level, you cannot share everything. So in a way, you're not fully transparent, meaning that you lie to them, but there's certain things that you simply cannot share. So there's this weird dynamic that, okay, we cannot be what we were, so now we have to be cautious towards each other. And then the flip side happened to me where I had a manager where after a restructuring, he became my peer, but I couldn't treat him as a peer because I already had that respect towards my manager. So I was always cautious around him, even if we were in like more kind of like networking / social situations. I was always reserved because, I could still see him as that person that I used to report to. So what I have to say about that to people who face this kind of situations is that you should always treat people with respect no matter what, because you never know how roles will change, how the dynamics would change in the future. And the worst that can happen is you treating, let's say, a peer not very nicely, and all of a sudden a reorg comes and now this peer is your boss, your manager. Chances are you're not going to be the favorite one because they've seen a bad behavior coming from you. So, that follows you. So that was very interesting. It happened to me twice in different sides. And the lines are always very thin, I would say, within the corporate relationship. So we need to be a little bit cautious.
Yeah, I agree with you. We need to be cautious and we need to be kind too.
Yes.
Because to your point, it all comes around in some capacity, whether you're working for someone, they're working for you, or you need to rely on them. Like, just be nice. Just try to be nice. And even when it's stressful, try to be nice. It does work in your favor.
It matters for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about your transition into your management roles. And what do you think is the qualities that allowed you to do that? Or as you were a manager, the people that you saw around you getting promoted, like what qualities and what skills did they exhibit that made them really ready for that next step in their career?
Let me start from the last one. So every time I put somebody forward for promotion is when I saw, of course, the potential of what they could offer. So the value that they could deliver to the company rather than what they're doing right now. Because what they're doing right now, they're probably doing it very well because they've done it 1,000 times before. So they're just performing, right? But when we want to promote people, we want to see the potential in them and what more they can offer. So for me is the consistency. And I don't want to get into project management terms, but it's really about following up on the job because I've seen many, many times people saying I'm going to deliver X and then 3 months pass by and say, oh, no, it's going to be 3 months later. This has to do a lot with how you manage your work, right? So consistency, being open to feedback, I think is a huge quality because that's how people improve. And believe it or not everybody likes to get honest feedback. Obviously, you have to be skilled at what you're doing, but also open to grow. The openness to growth, I think, is a very important quality. And of course, we just talked about it earlier, to be a decent human being, which is not very common, but it's part of how you treat others as well, right? Because when you promote managers, you want to make sure that these people will treat their teams right. So you'll be surprised to hear I've been talking to so many people asking a basic question, what's the hardest thing about your job? And the answer would be managing people, managing my team is so hard for me. I cannot hear people's problems. And right off the bat, that this is not a great quality for someone if they want to grow and come to managerial level because it's your number one job. In terms of my growth and what qualities I exhibited, I like to be caring. I don't want to say I am caring because this is for them to judge. I like to be caring. I like to be next to my team because I think as a manager, you're not writing code, you're not doing testing. What you're doing is helping people do their job best they can and unblock issues. So I like to be close to them in order to know what these issues are and support them in any way that I can. And of course, I'm always curious to do the next thing. I'm not saying I will always propose the easy stuff. Sometimes my ideas can be a little bit not innovative, but sometimes companies are not ready for certain things. But, you can always try. And I think just being curious and sticking your hand up and being reliable is the most important quality for me.
Yeah. I like where you are going with it on talking about managers and needing to enjoy to work with people. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I know a lot of managers that will openly say things like, I love my team, but I hate managing people. And I just find that so interesting because I'm with you. I think the number one focus of a manager should be the people, training your team, making them better, all
Yes.
of that good stuff. But I think we have it in our head that the way to grow within an organization is just to go up the chain vertically. And that's not the case, right? There are other ways to grow your skill set to navigate the corporate ladder, but not in a vertical manner through managerial if that's not what you're good at.
Yes, absolutely. And there are a lot of people that are experts and professionals in a certain thing, and all they want for their career is to grow compensation wise, but keep doing the same thing, potentially growing, knowledge wise by changing different areas, but sticking to what they do and what they like to do best. And I agree, not everybody's meant to be a manager, and it's better that not everybody becomes a manager, because then you reach the situations where they resent being a manager because they have to deal with people.
Yeah.
And this is the hardest skill of all.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it takes a certain skill set to do it well. And I think that having the wrong person in that role impacts a large group of people, right? And their performance and whatnot. So I think that's also good advice as far as like considering what you want your steps to be like based on what you like as a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to give you a couple of questions now, and this is rapid fire. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So just gut reaction, no big thought around it. But what was your first job and what were you paid?
Okay, my first job was a wealth management associate in a hedge fund in New York, and I was paid $38K a year, which was not a lot of money for New York.
That is not a lot of money for New York at all. Did you ever like have a job as a kid?
As a kid, no, not a real job.
Okay. All right. Good. That's yeah, I've probably like most of mine were illegal anyway. I probably shouldn't announce, but okay. Greece, London, or New York, where do you do your best thinking?
Ooh, okay. I was there at different ages, so I'm gonna say Greece.
Okay. All right. I don't think many people would argue with that. That's like a pretty good place to be inspired.
Yes, I'm gonna say Greece, but it stops at thinking. Okay, just to
Yeah,
be clear.
exactly. And then they hand you a
Execution is
drink.
harder here. Yeah.
Okay. What's one thing that you wish you would have negotiated earlier in your career?
Oh my God, my salary, 1,000%. It took me many, many years to feel that I have the right to ask for more money. And it could be because I'm a woman and we have that thing, but it took me many years.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you're alone in that. And I'm sure it affects women a lot more, but I think it's men too. It's just like talking about money and yourself just has like some negative connotation to it. I don't know. One word for what it feels like to finally work on your own terms.
Challenging.
I hear you on that one.
Challenging, yeah. Because you have no safety net. Yeah, definitely challenging is the word.
And you
I'll
have
leave it
no
to that.
one to be like, hey, was that good? Like after a meeting or a call, you're like, hey, like, how did I do? And you get
Yeah,
feedback and you don't have that. So it's different.
Yeah, and I
Versus-
think it's one thing we don't appreciate enough when we're in big corporate environments is that, organic network that you have around you, that you can bounce ideas, find mentors, network, make friends, whatever. It's definitely something I miss. I'm going to say that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, good. And then the last question that I ask all my guests is this. Nobody told me blank, but once I figured it out, it changed everything for me.
Okay, nobody told me that I can take more risks early on. And then everything changed once I felt that, it's okay to try things.
Yeah. Or you
Meaning
lose your
more
visa
roles.
and you just have to try
Yeah,
things.
you lose your visa. Yeah, you lose your visa anyway. So take more risks regardless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's really good advice. So, anything to mention to us before we close out? Any lasting words?
Just a little summary of what I mentioned already for people that are starting their careers now. The way you would think your life today, it's not going to be it. Just know it. The line you're going to draw on a map and say, I'm going to take these steps and reach that end point, whatever, it's just not going to happen. And it's important for that reason to stay curious, stay open, take risks, and always do the things you love. If you're in a job that you're unhappy, the environment is not good, you don't like what you do, switch it. Don't waste time. Move on, move up, move around. Just make sure you really enjoy what you're doing, because that's the only way you're going to grow. That's all.
Amazing advice. Amazing advice. So, where can we find you, connect with you after this if anyone wants to reach out?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Mariza Fotiou. I'm happy to connect with anyone who needs further advice. I'll be there. I'm quite responsive.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much. I appreciate your time. I'm going to Greece soon. I don't know if I told you that, but I'm
Yeah.
going to need to coordinate with you for sure.
Yes, feel free. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah,
It
thank
was
you so much.
great to be on your podcast, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.